Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. Do you like the new jingle? I think it's appropriate, right? Back in Champions League, we should celebrate the situation. Second place. Alasdair, do you know how many times Lazio finished second in the Serie A?
In history?
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I when I was looking at it, I only went back as far as when was the last time we got this finished this high, which was the Scudetto in 2000, obviously. So I don't know. Maybe there was. Okay, you're telling me 4?
Yep. This is the fourth time. So it's a big achievement for the club, right? And finishing above clubs like Inter, Milan, Juventus, it's unbelievable. No one predicted that. Well, nobody predicted Lazio in the top four, to be honest. But incredible achievement, great performance, and it's only the second year of Sarri, so this is really promising. And Maurizio Sarri is the first Italian manager to get this job done. All the other managers that put Lazio in second place are all foreigner. So Sarri is the first Italian to do it.
Yeah, and it's been a very Italian-centered effort, hasn't it? There was obviously a bit of an Italianization of the squad last summer. The squad now has more kind of Laziali in it than before, and I think that certainly the second part has helped this real connection with the team develop. And to be honest, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think that was always going to be a difficult part of this transition from Inzaghi to Sarri, because in the Inzaghi years, we developed a very close bond with that coach and that team quite quickly. And that was as a result of Inzaghi being at Lazio for 20 years, already being a kind of club legend in his own right before he even started. And then the team that he had, obviously winning trophies pretty quickly. But I don't think it was enough for Sarri to come in and just take over the same team and try and get them to play in his style of football. I think he was always going to have to try and build this team's own identity off the pitch and build a kind of way of saying that this is a new team with a new personality, and the fans have to develop a new connection with. And I don't think that really happened so much last year. But this year, I feel like that has developed, and perhaps that's been a part of it.
Yes, but if you think we didn't change that many players, right? Because the core of this team is still the one that Inzaghi had: Immobile, Luis Alberto, Milinkovic Savic. The defense is the only thing that changed completely, I would say. So that's even a bigger achievement for Maurizio Sarri.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. The other thing, Alasdair, we talked about it all season long, but last year we conceded so many goals, and this year we are one of the best defense in Europe, which is unbelievable. 21 clean sheet for Provedel. I mean, how incredible is this compared to last year Lazio's defense?
Yeah, and if again we're gonna try and talk about the differences between the two eras, that's something, when people were talking about the transition from Inzaghi to Sarri, a lot of the focus was obviously on going from a more direct style of play to a more possession-based style, going from a back three to a back four, and the formation change. But I think what he's achieved here is actually something Inzaghi isn't capable of. I think we've seen enough from Inzaghi, both at Lazio and at Inter by now, to know that he is not a coach who can organize a defense well enough to have a season like that. I didn't know that Sarri was this good at getting a defense organized. And obviously it's not just Sarri. You have to massively applaud the players involved, especially Provedel, Romagnoli, and Casali, who have only just arrived and already created that unit. But Sarri's defensive organization is something that people aren't really talking about. And it has transformed this team in a way that previously, like I say, I don't know, do you agree? I don't think Inzaghi could have done that with this team.
Well, I think one of the first year Lazio had one of the best defense in Serie A, but the particular thing this year, Alasdair, is that Sarri is known to be a very offensive-minded manager, and Lazio had played pretty much every single game with this offensive style type of football. So thinking about Lazio as an offensive team and being the best defense in Serie A, that's really incredible, right? Because usually, and we had Zeman, so we are very well aware, if you have an offensive mind type of football, well, you usually concede something. Italiano is an example, right? Fiorentina is very dangerous when they attack, but you know that you have a chance to score 2, 3 goals in a game against Fiorentina. With Lazio, it's the opposite. Lazio, you know that it's going to attack, but you know that you're not going to have a lot of chances to score. So I think this is the biggest difference. And
yeah, having spent a lot of time watching Roma this season as well, I can vouch for the fact that it is an impressive thing to be able to have a good defense without playing defensively. Because Lazio's defense has
yeah,
outperformed Roma's this season by miles. And yet Roma are playing a defensive style of football every week. And Lazio aren't playing a defensive style. They're just defending well. I mean, it's incredible, the balance that seems to have been struck. And we have to go back again. I mean, we're kind of looking back over the season a bit here as a general thing, but I think it's important to do that because you have to go back to where we started with a raft of new signings coming in, and then throughout the season with Ciro Immobile having more injury problems than we've ever seen him have, and in a season where we're not exaggerating here, there are no other strikers in the squad. Not that they're the strikers we have are youth players or someone who's rusty. There is no one else. Sarri had to invent a system to have Felipe Anderson playing through the middle, to have Matteo Cancellieri occasionally playing through there, but there are no actual natural strikers in this squad, and he still managed to pull this off. The options are so threadbare throughout the squad, and the issues he's had has gone beyond that to Milinkovic Savic's form falling off a cliff in the second half of the season, somehow still getting a nomination for midfielder of the season. Maybe we can talk about that later, but he's had so many challenges this season. And, you know, I wrote a tweet that went a bit wild about this after we finished second. And a lot of the response people seem to have, which is just seems to be a ready-made package thing by the media by now, which is, yeah, it's easy when you're only playing 2 games a week. Bollocks. I'm sorry, that only applies to the last 2 months of the season anyway.
yeah.
But secondly, if that was the case, Lazio would have finished second way before now, because we're not always in Europe late in the season, and we've never managed to pull this off in the last 23 years. So I just don't buy that. Has it helped this squad? Certainly, in terms of focusing on the tail end of the season. But the story of their season hasn't been that there's been no Europe. That's been the story of Atalanta's season, and they still finished 5th. So, you know, I don't think that's a way of undermining this achievement.
No, and Atalanta, for me, is one of the delusion of this year because everybody last summer said, without the European competition, Atalanta will finish top 4, etc. It's not always the case. And we have to mention, Alasdair, that Sarri made it pretty much with 14 players, right? It's not that we have that depth bench. And probably next week we're going to talk about. And finally, Alasdair, this is probably the first year when we're going to do the poll of signing of the season, when there's going to be some competition, right? You have to mention Provedel. We mentioned Romagnoli. I mean, Casale as well has been a surprise. Vecino. I mean, who could expect Vecino to play that well? So it's finally, I repeat, finally, we have a competition for signing of the year. Usually it was one player and that's it, right? Instead, this year we have different players that we sign in summer and have a huge impact with this club. So this is another positive signing. The other thing, and I want your thoughts about this, because you mentioned, and we said it for 3 years, we need a vice mobile, we need a vice mobile, we need a vice mobile. Felipe Anderson played number 9 when Chiro was injured. Now, rumors are that Sarri wants Berardi instead of Avice Immobile, and his plan is to sign Berardi and put Felipe Anderson as the substitution of Ciro Immobile and play Berardi on one side and Zaccagni on the other to have more option there. Do you like this type of plan, or would you go for, I don't know, Milik or number 9?
Personally, I'd go for a number 9. I mean, I have to say that Anderson has done a lot better than any of us expected in that role this season. But we've also seen that it is a problem. Like Lazio do struggle to score goals more when that is the situation. And Chiro's going to be a year older next year. I don't think we're talking about Chiro being finished or anything like that at all. But look, we're in the Champions League next year. We've already spoken a bit since we got the qualification about how important improving the squad depth is going to be. Is having Anderson as a number 2 to Chiro the squad depth we need? I'm not really convinced. I think that it is useful to have him. I've said this before. I think that Anderson is better on the wing than he is through the middle. And it would be great to have both Berardi and Anderson as options on the wing and then have another option as a striker so that then Anderson can be your third choice option there, because over the course of the season, it is more than possible that Chiro and Anderson won't be available at the same time. Berardi as an option generally, do I like that? Absolutely. I mean, it would be astonishing for after, however many years it's been of talking about Berardi. I mean, I think he's like the Sassuolo Milinkovic-Savic, where it's been years and years of transfer rumors to every team imaginable, and it's just never really happened. So if he ended up coming to Lazio after all that time, it'd be extraordinary, because he is one of the most consistently productive attacking players in Serie A for years now. And I think he would do really well in this team. Whether Lazio can pull that off or not is another question. But no, I don't think my mind has changed when it comes to the Vice Immobile. I do think we need someone whose instinct is to shoot, whose instinct is to finish, to get goals in a way that Anderson's isn't. Because although the counterpoint to what we've just said about how great the defense has been that this team hasn't been scoring as freely as it has in previous years. And I think a big part of that is having to rely on a lot of players whose strength isn't in finishing and it's more in the creative side. Zaccagni, Anderson, Pedro, these guys can provide goals, but when Chiro's not available, are they going to get you enough goals to charge up the table to win games? I don't think they are.
Berardi is a winger who likes to score more than provide assists, so this can change a little bit. Talking about Ciro, because we didn't talk at all about Empoli Lazio so far, I thought it was one of his best performances in the last month or so. I saw encouraging signing, which is a shame because the season ended, on Sunday. But people think Ciro's done. I don't think Ciro's done. I think he's going to be useful. But again, he's 33. He has no chance of playing every single game, especially next year with the Champions League. And at the same time, we have to think that in the last 2 years, Felipe Anderson played every single game. This is another thing that we cannot rely on. I mean, we cannot hope that Felipe plays every game even next year. So we need more rotation, more players available. And again, this brings me back to the first thing we said. Lazio reached the Champions League with 14 players. There are some question marks, important question marks we have to answer this summer. What to do with Marco Cancellieri? What to do with Basic, Marcos Antonio? These are players that we signed and hardly play this season. Next year, we're going to need a depth roster. We need 18, 19 players that are able to play in Champions League and big games in Serie A, because this year we did the group phase of the Europe League, pretty much playing the subs. Hila played a lot on Europe and hardly played in Serie A. Next year you cannot do it in Champions League. You have to play your 18 in Champions League and rotate players in Serie B in Serie A. So this is the biggest question mark I have, Alasdair, this summer. Let's not forget all the years we reached the Champions League with Lotito. We didn't do a great summer transfer market. This year, we cannot afford to make the same mistakes.
Yeah, there will be money to spend between Champions League qualification, the top two finish, the Super Copa entry. If you throw into that potentially the sale of, sadly, Milinkovic Savic, we'll see if that actually happens or not, but it's possible. But I think there will be money to spend, but they still is not it's not crazy amounts. And considering the amount of stuff that needs to be done, they're still going to be have to they're going to have to be super careful about how they go about it. Because look, in the last few years, when Lazio have got round to spending proper money, we've bought Dennis Vavro, we've bought Marici, we've bought Riza Durmizi. You know, they haven't spent big transfer fees very well. The best signings have always been the budget ones. So I think they need to be good at finding more of those good budget deals or opportunistic deals where they can, but be very careful when they're deciding to splash big money. Because that, like you say, the issue here isn't just that the quality of the squad depth needs to improve. It's the variety of things we need. You know, we've just spoken about the attack, but like you say, the midfield, given Antonio and Basic's problems and the issues we've had all season, and potentially needing to replace Milinkovic Savic, that's an issue. And even in defence, when we're talking about playing Champions League next season, we still need more options at fullback. We still would like a natural left back, and we still, behind Casali and Romagnoli, have Patrick next. Is that enough for a Champions League campaign?
Come on, you cannot offend Patrick. He had a great season. I would say even last year even better.
Last year he had a great season. This season, not so
Well,
much.
he didn't play that much.
I know, but my point is that great squad depth for a Champions League team that Patrick is your next choice centre back.
Well, we're not Real Madrid, right? I mean, we cannot rely on having I don't know a top player on the bench.
There's a difference between Real Madrid and Patrick. I mean, look, I'm a fan of Patrick. This is well established, but my point is that there you can make an argument for every area of this team to need strength, and that's my point. And so that's why I think it's when people talk about the money coming in and it sounds, oh wow, we've got a lot of money to spend. Actually, once you start thinking about all the jobs that need to be done to really make this a strong competitive squad, it's not that much money because it'll be spread very thin.
Absolutely. And we talked about Berardi. His value is around 20 million euros. So if you sign him, you already have spent 20 million. You already have 30 million. So you see, it's very difficult. But I mean, at least you have more money than the other years, and you have to do a lot of signings. So this is the biggest issue. I think we have so many question marks that we need to answer. You know, Basic, what's going to happen with him? Cancellieri, we signed him for 8 million euros, which is a lot for Lazio, and he hardly played. Is he staying? Are we sending him on loan? I don't think he's ready for the Champions League. So, you know, all this problem has to be solved before Lazio starts transfer market. And obviously, the question mark number one is what's going to happen with Milinkovic Savic. I mean, if we don't renew his contract, Alasdair, we have to sell him this summer, right?
Well, got an executive decision to make there, I guess. Do you get more value out of selling Milinkovic Savic for less than you previously wanted? So at the moment, we're talking seemingly 25, 30 million. So do you get better value out of selling him for that price, or do you get better value out of having him for one more season and losing him for free? I mean, obviously, a big part of this is how he feels about it, and he's not said I'm leaving, but he's not said I'm staying either, has he? So I don't know. It's a tricky one. I'm never totally ready to say 100% goodbye, Sergei. Thank you for everything, because I feel like we've been here before, and he's always stayed.
Yeah, the problem is how he's going to play, right? Because this season he had very good first 3 months, and after that, very average rest of the season. So is it better to keep him like this way, or I mean, even if you get 30 million euros, that is not his value, at least you get something out of it. And you can spend that money signing players who maybe will come to Rome with a better mentality or willing to um, prove everything, prove that they are ready to play this Champions League level. So that's the question mark we everybody at Lazio has to make. And one of the question mark, Alasdair, is Iglitares going to make this decision? Because his contract is up in less than 1 month. No renew has been discussed at the moment. So do you think the Iglitare era is over at Lazio?
It's feeling that way. It's felt that way throughout the season. Between the kind of war of words that's gone on with Sarri on and off, and how it's felt like, those two guys are on different sides. I feel like Lazio are more with Sarri than with Tare. And generally, just the speculation, that's the way it's been going, is that Tare's time is up. Now, it is an issue, isn't it? It was something we were talking about last week, but Lazio's, one of the things they've been so bad at in the past is getting things done early. And one of the first things you need, if you're going to be getting business done early and getting players in time for Alonso and the new season, is you need a sporting director who's actually going to be, doing the negotiations and signing the players. So whichever way this is going, I just really hope that these decisions have already been made. These conversations have already been had privately. You're shaking your head because I feel like you, like a lot of people, are not convinced that will be the case.
I don't think. Well, Sarri said Sunday. Was it Sunday? Did we play Sunday or Saturday? I'm lost. Saturday night. That he needs to talk with Lotito. So I think they didn't have this discussion yet, even though Lotito said yesterday that he already talked with Sarri. He don't need to talk to Sarri because they talk every single day. So I don't know. This is quite annoying because one say something and the other one say the opposite. Alasdair, before we go forward, this is not the Ross Country podcast. I think you have the wrong shirt.
I was hoping you'd bring it up. Well, I mean, Vittorio, you've become a Ross County ultra in the last couple of days, so I don't know what you're complaining about. I had to mark the moment because, I mean, look, we're not here to talk about County, but come on. I mean, we were in a relegation playoff yesterday, 3-0 down with 20 minutes to go, come back to 3-3 and win on penalties. I mean, it is the most spectacularly epic, and my heart basically came out of my mouth. It was so exciting. So just marking the occasion, Vittorio. I know you were excited as well. Don't say you weren't.
Absolutely. But when I saw that the other team had yellow and red and they went to penalty, I knew it was done. They didn't have a chance.
Doing your Bastardo Giallorosso chant while you were watching on live score.
Absolutely. It's a shame that they don't broadcast Scottish League here in Italy. I don't understand why. The best league in the world.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Alasdair, we're going to talk about the season next week. But if you have to give a vote for this season of Lazio, 1 out of 10, it's difficult because we have to be honest and say that in Europe we failed, right? We didn't pass the group phase in Europe League, which was achievable. We lost in the second game in Conference League, which again should have been not an easy, but an affordable. Again, we should have won. But at the same time, we finished second in the league. It's not that we reached the Champions League. We finished second above Inter, Milan, Juventus, and so on. So,
I think because of that, I mean, finishing second in a year full of difficulties where nobody had predicted we would be even in the top four, it's got to be an 8 for me. I mean, it's an incredible achievement. I didn't see it coming. I mean, look, there's one caveat here. I'm not saying this to belittle the achievement by any means, but we have certainly been helped by how spectacularly inconsistent everyone has been this year. And if you look at the league tables of previous years, we actually finished with 4 more points a few years ago when we finished fourth than we have this season finishing second. So it has been a year where you don't need an incredible points total to finish second, but you have to look at the context of each season as it comes. And in this season, Lazio have proved themselves to be more consistent than everyone other than Napoli. When the big matches have come, they've been ready for them, beaten everybody in the top seven this season. And, considering the squad being the way it is and the issues that we've outlined already and the new faces coming in, I think that's just an incredible achievement. Yeah, Europe's a huge disappointment. No doubt about that, but we're used to that by now. What would you give it?
Yeah, I agree with what you were saying, but the fact that for me makes the difference is that compared to the past, we beat Napoli, and not a lot of team was able to beat Napoli when the competition was on. Because after they won the Scudetto, they lost points, but before it was official, we were the only one with Inter to beat them. We won twice the derby, home and away, and I think Roma had one shot on targets in 2 games. We beat Inter, we beat Milan, we beat Juventus, we beat Fiorentina, Atalanta. That's very different compared to Lazio history, right? Lazio in the past was able to beat the lower teams and then struggle against the big one. We still didn't win at San Siro, which was disappointing. But 4-0 to Milan, that's a great achievement. 3-1 to Inter. Winning both derby. I think it was incredible. Obviously, very, very, very disappointment for how the European competition finished. Uh, I don't think we needed that much more to reach the final in the Conference League. AZ was an average team. We simply didn't play. Our mind wasn't focused. So that's huge disappointment. Disappointment, sorry, but maybe 9 out of 10. I mean, we finished second. This is only the fourth time we finished second. And Inter is playing the Champions League final, and we finish above them.
Yeah,
Milan, reach the semi-final, and we arrive above them. So, I think one of the things we have to mention is that probably this is the first time where Italian team focus more on the European competition rather than Serie A. But we deserve everything.
even so, yeah, finishing above that Inter team, the depth they've got compared to everyone else is ridiculous. I mean, to me, but also to most people, I think pre-season Inter were complete favourites for the title for the Scudetto by a mile.
Yeah.
And Inzaghi's. I think Interisti are currently they're trying to get their head around how they feel about Inzaghi because a run to the Champions League final is an unbelievable achievement, but losing 12 games in Serie A is shocking. So it's for Lazio to get ahead of Inter is something else. And look, I mean, it's the other thing is this achievement has really electrified the fans again, and I think that's so important going into next season because I don't think we had that feeling last summer so much that something big is happening where the momentum is carrying us to something great. Whereas we just had 65,000 in the Olimpico for the final game against Cremonese, a massive support for the last game against Empoli, and it feels like everyone with the Champions League coming, with Sarri showing what he can do, there does feel like there's momentum now, and the fans have kind of really, like I said right at the start of this podcast, they've created a relationship with this team and this coach now that's different to previous previous iterations of the team.
Yeah, and there's even this confidence that with Sarri, we're gonna do a great transfer market, like we did last summer. Last summer was probably one of the best of the last 10 years or so, and the belief is that this summer we're gonna do even better. And the impression is Alasdair. We put, it's like building a wall. We put a little bit of stones, etc., and we're building up. We need other couple of pieces to improve. I'm not saying that next year we're going to fight for the Scudetto, but I say that this year, if we sign 2-3 key players, the team is going to improve. If we reach the Champions League next summer, we're going to be able to sign other 3, and the team is going to be even more competitive. A lot of players have now understood what Sarri is asking. I have the impression, and this is probably one of the first time I have this impression, that finally the arrow for Lazio is going up. And this is not a coincidence that we finished second. It's not that we have been lucky or something bad happened, etc. I think that Lazio really deserved. Lazio was one of the team playing better all season long, best defense, etc. So I really think that the arrow is pointing up. Obviously, this is going to be a key transfer market session. We cannot make mistakes this summer.
Yeah, and I think really Sarri is such a central part of this, and it's so important to keep him as happy as he's been, because he has felt like he's found his place here. He was said time and again, like, I had no idea before I took the job what this club was like, how great this environment is to be working in. And after such difficult spells with Chelsea, with Juve, trying that kind of elite level pressure club, where he obviously had some success and I think was fairly harshly dealt with, but ultimately was sacked pretty quickly. He's found what the kind of job he wants to do here. But I think for him to continue feeling that way, the club really needs to support him. Yeah. And address the issues that he has highlighted throughout the season and trust him. I think trust is just so important to this. Sarri knows by now, he's a wily old coach. He knows what he needs. And there can be differences of opinion about how possible that is to get. But I think it's important that he's a big part of these discussions about how to build this squad.
And Alasdair, he's been pointing out with no problems, right? Last week after the Lazio game, he said, I need to talk to the president because we need to do the transfer market like I want. We need to sign important players to improve. Otherwise, even though I have a contract, I can leave the club. So it's the first time in the Lotito era that the managers come out and say these things straight, right? Inzaghi has always been very careful when talking about transfer markets. So this is the first time Lazio manager talks openly about the importance of the transfer market and how he wants to impose his will when Lazio need to sign players. So this is, in a part, a risk, because if Lotito say, I don't care, I'm going to spend the money in, buying me a new house, or, it can change a lot of things, or yes, we're going to do what you want. So it's important. I think I see it for once in an optimistic way. I think that Lotito will do what Sarri asked. And this is what big club do usually, right? But it's the first time it's happening at Lazio.
Yeah. We're in a better position when it comes to looking for players. We're in a better position than we've been for a while, because obviously the Champions League is a great thing to be able to dangle to players as a temptation to sign. But I do believe, honestly, that playing for Sarri is a drawing point for players too. Getting this attention for the efforts of this season, the style of football they've been playing, the highlight clips people have made of some of the goals Lazio have scored. I think players will look at this and be like, I'd love to play in a team like that. I'd love to play that style of football, playing that style of football in the Champions League. with an ambitious team. I think it's a project that you can sell to very good players. So yeah, I hope they can do that without having to spend absolutely everything.
And Alasdair, we saw it. Felipe Anderson, the last 3 years was dreadful. He's one of the best players in Serie A. Zaccagni was a good player, but nothing compared to what we see this year, right? So we saw Romagnoli. I mean, Milan fans were happy to see him go last summer. He has been one of the best defenders. Casale, Roma fans were making joke about Casale, right? Who the hell are you signing, etc. Again, he should be in the national squad. Provedel, best goalkeeper of the season. His eye has come back. So it's not one or two players that have improved with Sarri. It's pretty much everyone. So I can see Berardi pushing to come into Lazio. And this is something I would have never said 2-3 years ago. So this is why we are very optimistic, right? People know very well Sarri. A lot of players want to go and play for Sarri because they know what they're getting out. So this is really encouraging for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry if you're hearing kind of notification sounds. That's the sound of me being hailed to work. So I might have to leave you here.
Well, yeah, I think we can wrap it up. Don't miss the next podcast because we're going to do the season review. Polls are going to come out. So we want to know your thoughts about that. What Lazio season, best player, worst player. Thanks to all our Patreon. Thanks for your support. It's really, really appreciated. You keep us going. And I want to leave with a sad note because one of our friends, Tarek, left us. He was able to see Lazio qualifying for the Champions League. But yeah, a big, really sorry to have this news to tell you guys. But a Lazio fan has left us and we want to say goodbye to him and remember him as best as we can. So goodbye, Tarek. And guys, we're going to be back next week for a season review. So take care. Ciao.
Cheers.